How's everybody doing out there? This is Pete Richter coming at you, the old retired Baltimore City police officer, one of the last of the footmen. And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And this is what I got to say to the Egyptian people. Hip, hip, hooray, hip, hip, hooray, hip, hip, hooray. The dictator is heading down the Nile River. That's the end of him. And Obama says that they need a government over there that listens to the people. That's kind of close to the government we have. Our government only listens to certain people. We need a government that listens to all the people. I'm going to put a question up here, same question I put up last week, and we'll see if anybody can give me an answer to this question. And the phone number up here in Westminster is 410-848-9191. Liberty Works Radio Network, 410-848-9191. A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hardy high-o silver. The Lone Ranger and his faithful Indian companion Tonto ride into Washington, D.C. with their silver bullets and proclaim, we're standing up for the injustices and the corruption that's taking our country down. Could they raise a posse today? That's the question. Could the Lone Ranger raise a posse? And if he does, is there going to be more women in it than men? I don't know. We'll see what happens. But I got some good ones to talk about this week. This internet is great. Since I've been doing these talk shows, people have been emailing me these crazy stories that the police are involved with. And you can't make this stuff up. It's so ridiculous, you can't make it up. And truth's always better than fiction. But anyway, Islam, defended over our Constitution in Dearborn, Michigan. Unbelievable. In Dearborn, which is one of the highest population of Muslims in the country, live up there in this Dearborn, Michigan, and they're having a Muslim get-together at a fairground. Well, not on the fairground, but out on the public street, a couple of Christians come up with cameras and pamphlets about Christians. They're not forcing anybody to take them, but if you want one, they'll hand them to you. Well, lo and behold, they get on the video camera, and I guess they got a crystal ball. They looked in the crystal ball and said on camera, we're not going to be here too long when they're going to come over and start hassling us. Well, they're not there 3 minutes when about 6 police come up from Dearborn, Michigan. And they tell these Christians, you can't give out your flyers on this public street. Can you believe that? Then they say you can't video us. To make a long story short, the Christians are arrested for giving pamphlets to people that want them and for videoing the police. Well, none of this is illegal. None of that's illegal. You can do that. This is the United States. But they get locked up anyway. And then they got a judge up there that needs to be tarred and feathered. Judge Mark W. Summers. He ruled before the case even started that these people were guilty of breach of peace. Okay, and disturbing the peace because somebody called up and said the Christians is bad people. Well, let me tell you something. You need probable cause on these misdemeanors. Well, they're for felonies, but it's got to happen in front of you with most of these misdemeanors. And what these cops don't know today is a call from radio in itself is not probable cause. I could get on the phone right now and say that my engineer, Miss Jane Doe, is running around this studio with a machete chopping the heads off of little kids. That's not probable cause. because she's not doing it. She's sitting back here reading the Bible is what she's really doing. The only call over police radio that's probable cause is when one police is calling another police and the information's coming from a law enforcement officer, then it's probable cause. But anybody, look, how many times when you was a kid did you call the cab to that neighbor you didn't like, or order him a pizza and then laugh when the pizza guy got there? All this happens, so that's not probable cause. But this judge, Mark W. Summers, decides that it is. So they wound up, taking these kids to court, and then, when the smoke's all cleared and they spend their money for lawyers and have to sit in jail overnight, and the rest of the crazy stuff that happens to them, they're found not guilty. And when they go to court, the policeman even says it's after he locks them up, he gets to court and testifies that it's legal to video in public, and what they were doing wasn't disorderly conduct or a breach of the peace. And here's what went through my mind. And I don't know who sent me this one, but thanks a lot, pal. Send me some more. These are really great. But this is what went through my mind. I live on Eastern Shore in corrupt Queen Anne's County. And the state police and the sheriff's department down where I live have roadblocks all the time for sobriety checkpoints and seatbelt violators. Can you believe that? Drugs at all the school, they're doing this silly stuff. Well, anyway, if you get stopped at a Maryland State Police sobriety checkpoint roadblock Nazi style, there they are, 10, 15 of them, armed with guns, police dogs, uniforms, the whole 9 yards, and guess what? You're forced to take their pamphlet. Forced to take that pamphlet. You tell them you don't want it, they'll throw it in the window at you. But if you're a Christian talking about the Lord, what do? In Dearborn, Michigan, they arrest you. They arrest you. It's unbelievable what's going on in this country today, and we all got to start standing up for this kind of stuff. That's not right. And here's another good one. A Marine that's retired, served a couple of tours over in Vietnam, and his son was a Marine that got killed in the line of duty. And this retired Marine is working at Camp Lejeune, and he's got a car with stickers on it. And the sticker says, let me see here, "We died, they rejoice." Then he's got some kind of like Muslim design on there. He was ordered not to bring his car on the Marine base. Ordered to. Well, anyway, that went to court. Some people championed him, and now he can bring his car onto the base at Camp Lejeune, and if he wants to go to Arlington Cemetery to see his dead son who died fighting for this country's grave, he can do it now with the stickers on his car. But who in their right mind would say that in the first place? It's just unbelievable what's going on in this country. And your first line of defense for your constitutional rights is you, and your second line of defense is the police. And the police are out of control every week in the newspaper, on the television. They're stun gunning 80-year-old ladies, shooting people, shooting each other. And let me say something perfectly clear. Most cops are good guys that want to do the job right. Their leadership is the problem. Most of those guys go on a job to help people, to lock up bad guys, but they get entangled in all the baloney that's involved, and when they get one of these knucklehead police, nobody does anything about it, and that's the problem. It's just like this judge here. Who is this? What's wrong with this guy? He ought to be run out of town, tarred and feathered. Dearborn Judge Mark W. Summers decides that you're disorderly for exercising your constitutional rights. It's just unbelievable what's going on in this country, ladies and gentlemen, and sooner or later we're going to have to start sticking up for that Constitution. And I'm so proud of them Egyptian people, and let me put it in a nutshell. What happened in Egypt? Same old story, age-old story. The guy at the top, the power goes to his head. Old sayings are old sayings for one reason. They're true. They weren't true, they'd never be around long enough to be an old saying. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. And it's happened in this world hundreds and hundreds of times. Guy gets in charge, he starts out like a nice guy, then that power gets to him. And that's what happened over there in Egypt. And they started dumping on the people. And what led up to the revolt, the revolution we'll call it, in Egypt is happening here, but not with the severity that it was happening in Egypt. The police were illegally arresting people, political prisoners. They do that in the United States. Don't happen a whole lot that we know about because the news media won't tell it, but Pete Richter will tell you. They'll arrest you, they'll shut you up. And the police are beating confessions out of innocent people in Egypt constantly. I talked a couple of weeks ago about a retired Chicago cop that got 4.5 years in jail for beating confessions out of innocent people. The people in Egypt hate the police, hate them. Well, a big majority of the young people in this country sure don't like the cops. And they don't like them because they're illegally searched, talked at rather than to, and totally show no respect. And that's exactly what happened in Egypt. So if they don't get a handle on what's going on in this country, we're going to be in them streets sooner or later because history proves it. The guy at the top's going to abuse it. He's going to abuse his power and get you sooner or later. That's why George Washington was such a great man. George Washington could have been the dictator. George Washington could have been the king. George Washington could have been the czar. But George Washington gave that power to the people. He passed that torch on to us. He passed that ball on to us. And the torch is almost out and we dropped the ball, people. We got to start standing up for our constitutional rights. And here's where you start. The next time you go to one of them big box stores, and that security guard who has no authority over you tells you he wants to see your receipt to prove that you didn't steal something. Well, holy cow, man, he just seen you pay for it at the cash register. Why does he need your receipt? You don't have to give him your receipt. If he asks for your receipt, you say no thank you and just keep on walking. And if there's a policeman there as a security guard, tell me that ain't a conflict of interest. There they are violating your rights. They'll grab hold of you and everything. But the police are off duty working at these malls. They should not be doing that. That's a conflict of interest. You can't wear two hats. You know, if they want to be the clerk on the cash register, let the police do that. But don't let him stand there in full uniform with the gun badge and walkie-talkie and a police car the taxpayers are paying for, and have him be the security guard at one of these big stores. The guy that needs the cop at the store's in the ghetto, but he ain't got enough money to pay the cop $30 an hour or $25, whatever he's getting paid. But that big box store can. And don't show the cops your receipt either. I mean, be polite to him. If he wants to see your receipt, you say to him, "Are you accusing me of stealing, officer? Is there any reason for you to believe that I stole something?" And the best, here's the best answer. When you get them guards in the store, they'll say, "It's our policy. It's our policy." Well, the policy back in Mississippi was to get in the back of the bus if you're a black man. Policy, schmolicy, the Constitution's the law, end of story. And we're going to take a little break now. We're going to drink a little coffee, get your popcorn going. This next segment here is going to be a good one, too. Pete Richter, the old retired cop, talking to you. Liberty Works Radio Network, 410-848-9191. You need to give us a call up here. And the engineer, Miss Jane Doe, won't give you her name. Jane Doe's what she goes by. She don't tell the cops, nobody, her real name, unless it's official and she has to. under the Constitution, then she will. But anybody disagrees with what I'm saying, give me a call. Tell me where I'm wrong. You agree with me? I'd like to hear from you. And if I'm singing out of key, tell me that too. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, I said this land belongs to you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that golden skyway. I saw below me a golden valley. Yeah, this land belongs to you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, I said this land belongs to you and me. As the sun came shining and I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving and the dust clouds rolling, as the fog was lifting, a voice was chanting. It said this land belongs to you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, I said this land belongs to you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me as I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. Yeah, this land belongs to you and me. And if you're from East Baltimore in the old days, it belongs to Doodle Hopper too. But anyway, let me get my flat top guitar off of here and get back to the business of standing up for the law, standing up for the Constitution. Here's a good one. You'll like this one. Bronx cop hits pregnant woman's car and drives away. Hello. We got a call from Mel from Chase Street. Let's hear him. Oh, hello, Mel at Chase Street. How you doing? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what is it? Yeah. Hey, thanks, Mellis, Chase Street. Well, the first thing would happen is they would have to arrest them all. They'd call the cops would arrest them and say, you dress funny. You can't dress like that. And they would probably arrest them, haul them away. The news media would call them terrorists. And they probably bring the dogs in, and if they drove up in a cab or drove up with a limousine, they'd have the dogs go over to the limousine or the car they drove up in, and the dogs would alert, and they'd find drugs in there. That's what would happen to these patriots if they would come back today. And probably on their way over there, looking around at what's happening in this country, they'd probably all have heart attacks and die. Is probably what would happen. But it's a shame what's going on in this country. We need to stand up for our rights. And how's things down on Chase Street? I ain't been down Chase Street in a long time. I got a friend of mine named Mo. Lives in Florida. He grew up on Chase Street. And he's got a big job with the government. Started as a printer, then he became a big shot up in government. And now he's retired in Florida. And he's in one of those communities that everybody rides around in a golf cart, drinking highballs and smoking cigarettes, and that's when they're on the way to the golf course to get this exercise. And but anyway, We have to get Mo to call up one time. But anyway, let me get back to this pregnant woman hit by the police car. Miss Zanija Kurtovic, it looks like to me, she's 8 months pregnant and got some kids in her car, and she parks. Here comes the policewoman driving like she's crazy. Officer Shirley Perez Romeo is her name. And woman opens the car door, and just before she steps out, and there's plenty of room, ain't like, it's a little street, plenty of room here, hits the woman's door. If the woman would have got out 5 seconds sooner, the pregnant woman would have got run over. So she hits this woman's door. The police car hits the woman's door hard. Okay, so anyway, the light turns red down the street, and the cops got to stop at the red light. So this pregnant woman hustles down there and grabs the policewoman before the light turns green and tells the policewoman, "You hit my car." And the policewoman acts dumb. Like, what are you talking about? Well, the damage to the police car and the damage to that door, it's just obvious that she had to know she hit something unless she was high on drugs. So the policewoman tells the pregnant lady, "Go back to your car. I'm going to go down the street and make a U-turn, and I'll come back and we'll take care of it." So the pregnant lady turns around and walks back. Now, she don't bother to get the tag number of the police car. It's a policeman. Policemen are supposed to do the right thing. So policewoman don't come back. She just leaves. Pregnant woman standing there, and lo and behold, witness Julio Larandez, it looks like, seen the whole thing. Wrote the tag number down of the police car, wrote the number down of the police car, and made notes and went up to the pregnant woman and says, "I seen the whole thing. Let's get it on." Well, after the cop gets caught, then they'll handle it the right way. But that policewoman is going to leave the scene. And thinks nothing of it. And, the first thing the cops do, they try to protect each other. And let me tell you a true story about leaving the scene with the Maryland State Police on the Eastern Shore. These guys are just too much. My wife's got my pickup truck. And she goes to work at a Safeway store, grocery store. She parks the pickup truck away from the store like the good employees are supposed to. Well, while she's in the store working, here comes a car with a Delaware license plate with a Delaware driver in Maryland and runs into my parked pickup truck, causing $750 worth of damage. That person does not put their name, address, and serial number under my windshield wiper. That person leaves the scene without being identified. And lo and behold, one of the good citizens' dad got his tag number. So, and then that good citizen went in and found my wife, or give my wife the information, and said he'll be a witness if we want to go to court on this. So we called the illustrious Maryland State Police. Trooper Pertain comes down the house, and we give him the information. And I said, "Here's the tag number, the whole 9 yards." And we give it to him. He said, "I'm going to prosecute this a hit and run. To me, this is dangerous. You don't want somebody out there hit and run, but seatbelts is what these guys are after, seatbelt violations. And now the texting on the telephone is going to be their next one." So anyway, to make a long story short, the trooper talks to the hit and run artist, and the hit and run artist admits doing it. Admits it. What should you do, ladies and gentlemen? If you're the cop, what should you do? Here you got $750 worth of damage. Vehicle parked, hit by somebody out of state who leaves the scene of the accident. What should you do? I know what we did in my day. That person got a ticket. That person got several tickets. Not the Maryland State Police. They do nothing. Nothing. No tickets. But I guarantee you, if I went up at the police station, the barracks up there in Centerville, and bumped into one of them police cars up there to the left, they'd be locking me up, and they'd be locking you up. You can hit my car, but don't hit a police car. It's just unbelievable what goes on. And I told this story once before. One of the burglar suspects in the felonious burglary and $22,000 vandalism in my home. That's what got me started on this crusade when I found out how corrupt everything is down Eastern Shore. But I reported to Lieutenant Paul Kelly a vehicle parked on the public street with a for sale sign in the window with the burglary suspect's phone number. Parked on the public street, a pickup truck with the burglary suspect's phone number in the window with a big for sale sign. The serial number of this truck, pickup truck, has it listed to a guy that owns a garage in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I'm living on the Eastern Shore of Queen Anne's County of Maryland. This guy lives in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, the owner. This vehicle has a history of like 9 sales from New York to Florida and back again, all up and down the East Coast. And it's displaying, that means attached to the truck, a Delaware license plate. Now this truck's owned by a guy that owns a garage in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. It's on my street in front of the burglary suspect's house with his phone number and a for sale sign. The Delaware tag had been expired for more than 4 years. But the sticker on it is current. How do they do that? Well, Delaware's so brainy, they don't put numbers on the stickers. So people call them, say my sticker got messed up, they send them another one. You can put them stickers on any tag and you don't know that sticker, where that sticker actually belongs. Well, anyway, here comes Lieutenant Crime Fighter Paul Kelly, Maryland State Police. With all this evidence, what does he do? He warns the burglary suspect to move the pickup truck because retired cop Pete Richter, victim of felonious burglary and $22,000 vandalism, and refuses to turn over and play dead, made a complaint. Unbelievable. Now here's a complaint. The probable cause is the vehicle on the street. There it is. The tags are expired. This was brought across the state line for the purpose of an illegal sale. And they do absolutely nothing. But you better have your seatbelt on. They're going to get you. So anyway, there's a couple true stories. And if any state police out there wants to call me a liar, call up here and we'll talk about it, because I'm telling you this happened. And we got to stand up for our rights. Now, of course I took it further. I wrote letters to the superintendent of the Maryland State Police, goes in one ear and out the other. And one state police superintendent that I wrote to wound up going to jail. He came from New York. They put him in Baltimore as the police commissioner. From there, they made him state police superintendent. While he was a Baltimore city policeman, commissioner, he was taking the old poor box money, I don't know what kind of fund they call it now, and going out to dinner with people, girlfriends, and buying this and buying that and taking trips. And he went to jail for that. So that's one of the guys that I wrote to. Unbelievable. But anyway, this Constitution is what makes us free. And once again, this is what I got to say to them Egyptian people. Hip, hip, hooray. Hip, hip, hooray. And I tell you what, Barak would lock up our forefathers if they showed up in Egypt wanting some rights. They would lock that. They'd probably shoot them over there. But not now with this new government. They're going to listen to all the people, not like our government listens to some of the people. Pete Richter coming back here, and call me. I'm all ears for calls. I want these state police to call me up and tell me I'm not telling the truth. But they'd have to disguise their voice or they'd get in trouble from their bosses. 410-848-9191. Liberty Works Radio Network. 410-848-9191. And I'm coming to you from lovely downtown Westminster, Maryland, up in the country, right below the Pennsylvania line. and it's chilly out there. Well, let me give you another good story here. Just another great one. It's 15 degrees out, and the fella's in court, and the court hadn't even started yet, and he's sitting there with his hat on, with USA on the hat, just like mine. And he's sitting there in the courtroom. The court hasn't started yet. The judge is not in there yet. And the bailiff, who are usually retired police, tells this guy, take your hat off. The guy says, I don't want to take my hat off. And it looked like it might have been set up on the video, because the guy with the hat knew exactly how to handle these cops. No, sir, he says, I don't want to wear my hat. It's part of my attire, this, that, and the other. Well, one thing leads to another. The bailiff, you're not telling the court what to do. They're going to tell you what to do. The guy refuses, in a polite way, not to take his baseball hat off that says USA on it. Next thing you know, the police are involved. The courtrooms always have cops in there, too. Make a long story short, this guy is thrown on the ground, handcuffed, and dragged out of the courtroom for wearing a hat. People in the courtroom got their cell phones, so this is all on video. And there was another fellow there with, I think he had like a regular handheld video, and he wouldn't turn his off. And you see the police dragging this guy in the back, dragging him here, dragging him there, because he didn't have his hat on. So if I'm Jewish, I could wear the yarmulke. If I'm a nun, I can wear the habit. If I'm a Muslim, I can wear the, what do they call that, the burqa? Not the thing on the face, they got to show their face, but that dress that they wear on their head. And if I'm bald-headed, I could, burqa is right, I got that from my girl back here. But anyway, if I'm bald-headed, I could wear a wig. So I could wear a burqa, a habit, a yarmulke, and a wig, but I can't wear a hat with USA on it. I can't give Christian material out on the public street, and now you can't wear a hat in the courtroom. Well, lo and behold, the moral of that story is, it's not against the law. This is some policy that some judge somewhere decided a long time ago, you can't wear a hat in here for respect. You got to show respect to this courtroom. How can you respect some of these courtrooms and some of these judges? It's just unbelievable who they want you to respect. Tell me if it's, I'm going to give you a true story about a retired judge, big shot judge down Eastern Shore. And, man, this guy's got a reputation a mile long you wouldn't believe. But anyway, this judge has some property up in Centerville, Maryland. That's where the courthouses are, and all the politicians and all the government buildings are in Centerville. And he's got a piece of property in Centerville that is assessed for $260,000. Wouldn't you like to have a piece of property assessed for $260,000? I know all the poor people would, and all the working people would. $260,000 piece of property. So the judge sells it to the taxpayers. Sells a $260,000 piece of property. That's what it's assessed for, to the taxpayers of Queen Anne's County. And the taxpayers, out of their hard-earned dollars that they sweat and toil for, those dollars came to the total of $1,300,000. The judge sells a piece of property worth $260,000. That's what it's assessed for $1,300,000. Take your hat off in court. You got to respect these guys. Unbelievable. Now, another thing I learned is all across the country, assessments are too high. It's like 25-30% of all the property assessments are assessed for more than what they're worth, so they can get more tax dollars out of it. Now, either this piece of property the judge had was underassessed for 5 times its value or 5 or 6 times its value, or he was paid 5 or 6 times the assessed value, which is the real value. So that needs to be investigated, and as far as I know, there's no investigation going on, but who are these tax assessors? They work for the state. Something needs to be done with that. I could call the Attorney General, but he ain't going to do nothing. But that's the way that goes. And got a policewoman here. And she's what I call a Sharpie cop. Well, she was forced to resign. And while she's under investigation for all kinds of things, she's on paid leave for 14 months. 14 months on paid leave. Some of the things that she was under investigation for: filed incomplete or inaccurate reports. Reports, official document. Incomplete, inaccurate. Why inaccurate? What was inaccurate? She spelled the word wrong? Probably not. Conducted improper searches. That's called assault. They're supposed to conduct a search properly. Properly. Let me tell you about a search they conducted in Baltimore City up on Patterson Park Avenue near Ashland. A black guy driving one of them Lexus Sharp cars, who's ex-Navy, I think he was. Decent guy, and he works with a place, and he's got this nice car. He's not like he's a bum or nothing. He's a nice guy, ex-military. But the cops think he's a druggie. You can't have a black guy driving a sharp-looking car up there to 700-800 block of Patterson Park Avenue. That's the ghetto. Who are you to have a nice car? You can't be working for a living. You're black. This is how these idiots think today. And so they pull him over, and he's got his buddy in the car. They pull them both out of the car, these narc squads. Knockers, the street people call them. They pull the guy out of the car, passenger out of the car, search the car inside and out, pat them down, search them. Then one of these nutball cops puts a pair of rubber gloves on, pulls the man's pants down with 30 people standing on the corner watching all this, and cavity searched his butt. Can you believe that? Then he takes the rubber glove off, throws it in the street. They all hop in their cars and ride off into the sunset with this guy standing in the street pulling his pants up, and he did nothing wrong. So I wonder what kind of proper searches this policewoman did that they, allowed her to resign or over this. And she had 20-some years on, I think. Read 22, something like that. She conducted improper seizures of private property. That's the definition of a larceny. So she's committing larcenies. Improperly handled controlled substance. What does that mean? Improperly handled controlled substance. That means it's dope. How did she do this? They're not saying. Engaged in overbearing, oppressive, or tyrannical conduct. It sounds like Genghis Khan ripping through Europe, don't it? Let me read that one again. Engaged in overbearing, oppressive, or tyrannical conduct. And she don't get fired, she don't get to jail, but that's what happens. And these cops are like out of control. And the investigation was done by the police, and they're refusing to give the details of the investigation up. Happens all the time in this country, ladies and gentlemen. You got a thing known as the Freedom of Information Act, where you're entitled to certain information, and the police withheld it. I had a senator order a Maryland State Police to get me because I was putting in the corruption in lovely Queen Anne's County, and I caught him. The investigator from the internal investigation of the Maryland State Police sustained my complaint, sustained it. Then the following week, the big shots got involved. I got a letter that nobody did anything wrong, and I'm not entitled to copies of the reports. Unbelievable. They do what they want. Like this woman, this police woman that's suspended, she had the dog. So I guarantee you, one of the reasons that the dogs are wrong 60% of the times is because the cop's lying. These dogs can smell the dope, but if there ain't no dope there, and the police says the dog alerted, you can't cross-examine the dog. And she was off 14 months paid leave, a total to thousands and thousands of dollars, while she's, being investigated for a crime. We got a sheriff sergeant, brother of the sheriff, who was charged in Cecil County for sexually assaulting a policewoman. He was off on the same kind of leave getting paid while he's under criminal investigation and indictment. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just totally unbelievable. And really it should be unaccepted by those in charge. But is it? Who knows? Who knows? You know what I'm going to do now? It's gospel time. Oh, man, almost fell off his chair. We need better chairs up here to save a patriot. But anyway, let's do an old time gospel song, and this one kind of goes like this. There's a place dear to me where I'm longing to be, with my friends at the old country church. There with Mother we went, our Sundays we spent with our friends at the old country church. Precious years of memories, oh what joy it brings to me. Hang on once more to be with my friends at the old country church. How I wish today all the people would praise and prayed in the old country church. If they'd only confess, Jesus surely would bless, as he did in the old country church. Precious years of memories, oh what joy it brings to me. Hang on once more to be with my friends at the old country church. All my thoughts make me weep, for so many now sleep in a grave by the old country church. And someday I may rest with the ones I love best in my grave by the old country church. Precious years of memories, oh what joy it brings to me. Hang on once more to be with my friends at the old country church. You don't have to believe God to live in this country. That's what makes this country great. But those of us do should not be harassed by the cops and locked up for giving out Jesus Christ pamphlets to people that want to take them. Pete Richter signing off. We'll see you next week. And the Constitution's the law, and if that's politically incorrect, too bad.